The Tulalip History Project welcomes Purple Heart recipient Joe Jones, interviewed by his daughter, Virginia Jones. As a Combat Marine Corp veteran, Joe talks about his Vietnam experiences and reflects on his Tulalip upbringing and family. Joe shares stories from his years fishing, hunting, and working for the Tulalip Tribes while serving as a member of Tulalip's Honor Guard throughout his life.
My name is Joe Jones. I'm a tribal elder. My grandfather was George Culver Jones Sr. and Martin Williams, but we had two different grandmas that were married to Doc Jones. So my real grandma is buried up in Monroe, and the other children, grandma's buried out here with the grandpa. That's Stan and Gloria, and my dad were the first original kids with the grandma in Monroe, and then Josephine was the grandmother of the rest of them. She's buried down here, but Doc Jones Sr. is the father of all of them. My mom was Florence D. McKay. That's Martin Williams' daughter, and George Culver Jones Jr. He was my real dad, but he kind of left us at an early age. He died when he was 46. I think I was 17 or 18, and when I got out of school is when he passed away. And
you told a lot of stories before about being really young and living on the beach during the summer.
Oh yeah, well, during the summertime we didn't stay at home like I stay up on the quill now, but during every fishing season they'd all bring up their tents. My grandpa had like a 12-man tent, or a couple of them, and they'd just build up their little hotels on the beach there and stay down there until it got so rough that, they had to move away. But we were down by McKee's Beach all the time, and there ain't nothing there, ain't nobody to bother you. But I fished with Pat Gates and my grandpa and Phil and a guy they called Goof, Bernie Williams' dad, and they were all like 50 years old when I first started, and so they were trying to teach me everything they know, but the older people can sure harass a guy when they know. They took tricks on me all day long now, because I never knew. We just went down to the beach and started fishing.
I remember you talked before about being a splash boy when you were really young too.
Another thing that Phil and them always bothered me about is I always had to be the one on the end of the net, because you got to splash to keep the fish from running around the end of the net. And they would never have to do it or never take turns doing it. I mean, you got to sit there and do that all the time. I got tired of that. I wanted to be on the beach, and finally they started letting me do that, but then they give me the heaviest, again, messing with me, give me the lead line, and that's hard pulling, and just tease you about why you're not going fast enough, and you can't go any faster. But we had a lot of good times. And Pat Gates is one of the first ones I stayed with out here when we were first little. They lived out here, or lived right by the freeway up here, and he was one of my first babysitters. He's our godfather. He's the godfather of all my kids. But he was one of my first babysitters. But I've been watched by 5 or 6 different families because my dad left us so soon and my mom couldn't take care of us. I started out kind of staying down in Seattle with relatives, the Warbuses down there, and up here I was stayed with the Hatches and the Cheers, and just wherever I could stay. And I went to the Marysville School District, first grade through the 8th, and then kind of got kicked out of town, and they said that I had to go to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, or else. They didn't give me much choice, but I ended up going there for my junior and senior year in high school, and I did real good down there because their standards in the Indian school weren't as high as they were in the white man school. Like where we were doing algebra in school here, they were still adding small numbers and fractions. But the school I went to at Fort Sill was, because there was only like 500 in the whole student body, 250 guys and 250 girls, and that was pretty small compared to my brother went to Chilocco. We both went down there and thought we were going to the same school, and they split us up there, didn't tell us that he was going that way. So he just buy different bus tickets. We split up, and I didn't see him again for a long time. But I'm glad I went to Fort Sill when I got down there. I got through, I was on the honor roll and the honor society, and I lettered in baseball for 2 years down there. And after that, I took off for Nisqually and got out of there and joined the Marines and went to see the world. Of course, about then the Vietnam War was starting to go pretty good, and everybody wanted to go, and we didn't know whether we were going to go or not, because it was then you had to sign up for the draft. But I wasn't worried because I was going to join anyways. But then they knocked off the draft and called in you go on your birthday. Like everybody that was born on May 16th, that's my birthday. They sent them, that they pick half of the alphabet until they get what they wanted. And then, because I was over there and there was guys married and had kids, and they still drafted them over there. But it wasn't too bad where I was, except when we went out. And that's the thing was we went out and looked for them in the jungle. And a lot of the other guys, they had to wait for them to come, and we couldn't do that because we were always moving in the jungle, flying everywhere we went. We went in helicopters, but we were 7 and 8 man teams, and we got caught bad a couple of times. We lost a few guys, but a lot of them got lost, I bet. But they didn't really let you know who got hit or because they really didn't want you to see that. Even when I got hit, it seemed like they were trying to hide that they didn't want all the other guys there to see what happened. And disabled veteran from Vietnam, 69 and 70 was the years I was there. I was with the Special Operations outfit, Marine Corps Recon. Got the Purple Heart. I was there for a little over 4 months and spent 11 months in a hospital. But my military career was over after that, trying to outrun speeding bullets, and couldn't do it. But I got out of there and came home and went back to my old job, and couldn't do the work that they wanted me to because of the wounds that I sustained. Make me kind of not a cripple, but I'm legally an amputee from being shot. But I had other wounds from knives, and they wanted to try to fix me up there in the hospital. But like I say, I was in there for 11 months just for the gunshot wound, because they won't let you go home unless the wounds are healed completely. I was stuck in Guam for 11 months till it healed, and I came home. And by then, the war was pretty much on TV, and got here, there was nobody around, nobody home. And
when you were in the military, you were a radio man?
Yeah, when I first got over there, we were all kind of trained at something, and I was trained not because of being good at the radio, because it weighed 25 pounds with the battery. So the big guy got to carry the radio, besides the other radio man. But I was also trained in that, and when we got there, the year before that was that big TED operation they had, and we thought we were going to have another one, so we were getting ready for that, and all of our guys were going into Cambodia on the Vietnam side, and we were going into the jungle and finding out what they were doing and how many were coming. We knew they were coming because you could hear them, you could smell them, and they didn't care because they were right across that line that we couldn't cross. But we couldn't find the boundaries in the dark, so we made it in there and out, but we were waiting for them to come, and finally somebody higher up than God gave the permission to start using big bombs, and that when they started bombing it with the B-52s, they're flying out of the Philippines just one after another, and I don't know how they lived through that, because when we were out there in the jungle, we could see them, we could hear them, we were right next to them, and that's what we were, with the contact for the planes and helicopters to come in. But the bad part about it is they had to come into the same stuff and get us out. A lot of different actions being pulled out when all the guys they knew the helicopters were coming after us, but they didn't know where we were. But being a Recon Marine, they had a bounty just toward the head of a Recon Marine with $20,000. So we didn't really want to get caught at all. So you take as many with you as you can. When I was there, nobody got caught, but a few of them won't come back. But you really had to try your hardest. But like when I first got there, we were a lot of replacements because of the big actions before us, and so when our plane got there, everybody that got off, like we went in 300 different directions. There's no two of us went together because they were needed so many guys all over. So I only knew a couple of guys from Washington. When I got over there, I went and trained with a kid from Chiloquin, Oregon, and he got hit like 2 weeks after he got there. He dropped a mortar in his hole, and him and all the other guys that were with him didn't kill him, but they went home. But I got hit about January 31st, 1970. We were ambushed, and we ambushed them first. We were in a place called Elephant Valley, and when we ambushed them and we took off back down the trail, and we thought they weren't coming, and we waited and waited, and so about a couple hours later we thought they had pulled out, and we started back down the trail where we'd come from, and they circled around and come up were on top of us, and that's when they ambushed us, and that's when I got hit. And so there was kind of a little major battle there, because that's what we were doing, is trying to locate them, what they were doing, because they were packing so much stuff down the road at night, the Yellow Brick Road, we called it, but we didn't know what they were doing with it and where they were going and how many there were. They estimated like 10,000 guys coming down, and when we started to find them, we were finding underground hospitals and all kinds of ammo storage, and so we just called in airstrikes from all over the place. And one thing about being in Recon, whenever we called for help or we called for airstrikes when we found something, they were always right there. I know a bunch of guys, they'll make you wait if they can't get to you. Like I say, we were worth so much, they couldn't afford to lose one of us, and not one of us would want to go back if we did get caught. But I didn't hardly know anybody there. I honestly don't know or remember the first names of any of the guys. We were always calling each other by their last names, or I was the Indian, the only one in the company. So they were having a hard time when I first got there. The coloreds and the whites were throwing hand grenades in each other's hooches. They called it fragging, and they'd go to their EM clubs and somebody'd throw a hand grenade into the EM club and they'd go back and they were doing that back and forth. And about after that, I volunteered for the jungle every time I could get out there because I didn't want to be around when they were doing that kind of crazy stuff. I mean, they were hurting more of our own guys, but nobody was telling us what we were going to be doing because when they all pulled out, like when the president had them all leave, everybody just picked up and ran. I mean, that was a bad thing for us because a lot of us paid for that, and a lot of them ain't coming back. And tried to go back to work. I worked at Boeing's and Scott Paper, and I couldn't handle the work that they had because of the wounds and stuff. I couldn't pick up the weight that they wanted. But now I'm fully disabled, or not disabled, but they pay me the 100% that I deserve. Took a long time, but I don't know, a lot of the Vietnam vets are going away now. So you can count them on two hands now, I think. They're just lucky to be here, I guess.
Can we go back to your siblings?
I didn't know my brother Conrad. Pauline, she's the oldest, but she's actually my half-sister. Her dad is from Texas, and my little sister, not little, she would be my older sister too, is Kathy. And then me, well, Conrad was before Kathy, but he was a baby, so I don't know. I never saw him. And then there's me and Stevie, and then Artie. So there's 4 boys and 2 girls. Kathy, she's the one that died of that, whatever they couldn't figure out. When there was disease around here, like the flu or whatever, they couldn't take care of them. They didn't know what my sister died of. They tried everything on her, and till the day she was gone, they couldn't find out what was wrong with her. And they never did find out, or they never told us, because we donated her body to science, because we wanted to know too, and they never got to us. But about the same time after that, I ended up spending the time in the hospital. I had kidney problems and didn't know it, and they, like I say, make you keep going, get up. I hurt, no, get up, keep going, and finally I started to swell up like a basketball. My head and my body just like a basketball, and I got to the doctor, and he had to get him to the hospital. He knew what was wrong with my kidneys, and I almost died there because they had me on, just couldn't get off the bed for 5 months. That's to keep me from moving around. I was so young, though, I didn't know what was wrong or what they were doing. And they had a time holding me down, but I made it through that one. When I was young, the I-5 wasn't here. They were just a big flat spot. I mean, they were trying to get to Canada with it, but if you were going to Seattle or wherever, you all had to go on the old 99, and it could take you 3 or 4 hours to get to Seattle. But we never really left the reservation at all. I was 12, 13 before I really left the reservation and went to Seattle. That was a big place to go to. And Marysville was a big place at the time. And I know that I see this show this guy was joking about him and his friends standing there at the boundary of the reservation. And you mean we can leave? And that's the way we were. We didn't know we could come in, nobody come into town unless your parents were with you, you had money, or I mean, it just things you didn't do. And nobody ever really went to the stores out here. They canned everything. I mean, we used to call Grandma Sarah's house Grandma Ranch, and I never knew her real name was Sarah, just Grandma Ranch. But she always had sheep, and so there was a source of meat for her, and they didn't have big refrigerators. They had cellars, holes in the ground where they keep their food all cool. I know my grandma had one, and she used to stash stuff out there, but everybody would find it. Spud and them didn't find it, we did, but they used to travel all over grabbing berries and everything they could to can. And they ate fish for so long that every time we have dinner, it's fish or clams. And that's why I don't like clams now. I ate so many of them in my lifetime that so I don't mind digging them. But
did you start working for the Tulalip Tribes in about the late 70s?
I got back from Vietnam in '70, and I went back to work at Scott Paper. I worked for Boeing before I went in. That's 1968. When I graduated from high school, the tribe got a deal when they built that new building out there, that 747 building. They were hiring tribal members, and there was about 8 of us, me and Juju and Lillian Gomez, Ezra Hatch, and a couple other ones we got in there, but I don't know. We were so split up we never saw each other because that building was so big, and I don't know, I never met or worked with that many people that weren't Indians, you know. There's some that liked us and some that didn't, and sometimes you couldn't tell whether they were saying something bad about you or good about you. But I worked there for so long I wasn't getting advancement like the rest of them, and I told them, well, I got to go then if I can't make the same as they are, and I started before they did. I got to go, and he told me I couldn't leave, and I'll see you later, and I walked out the door and left. But then that's when I went back to the Marine Corps and then got out of there and ended up back at Scott Paper. But then they tore the building down, and so Scott Paper went out of business, but I didn't stay there long either. That's when I lost the family members and I started going to Alaska. So I fished up there till probably '74, and then, but I was about 40 years working with the tribe. When I sank my boat up there in that storm, I swore I'd never go out there again, and went in and got myself a job at the tribe. And after a while, I went back out there, but on my vacation time, and otherwise I worked my way up to maintenance manager, working with the tribe, doing a job that Les Parks and Weedy used to do. And they moved on, and I ended up where I was at. But I fished most of my life beach sand with my grandpas and my dad, and when the Boldt decision and all that came down, I was getting ready to go to Alaska to go fishing just to try to get an Alaska license, and I lost that license because of the point system they had. And when I went up there, I lost the license down here because of the point system they had here, so I lost all the way around. But I got the fish onto my tribal fishing ID, and that's when the Boldt decision was coming through, and I actually stayed down in Nisqually with Janet and Don McLeod. They were kind of, along with Billy Frank, that's her brother-in-law, but I lived down there when they were starting to do what they called a big fight down there, but the Nisqually River isn't much wider than the Quill, and you could run across it. It's not shallow at most times, but the game wardens, whenever they were all up on one side of the river, and the Indians were all up on the other side. Everybody going into the water with pieces of net trying to throw it out, and they were trying to take it away, and the pieces of net weren't even from here to that wall long, and they were out there fighting over it. It's so crazy because nobody knew what they were doing. Like, I mean, nobody's ever done something like that before. But they were down there trying to take the boats and nets and everything. They finally succeeded, but only after they taken a bunch of them and arrested them. But I don't know if they'd call it arrested them because they took them to the stockade at Fort Lewis. And I don't know if they just questioned them or whatever, but everybody was down there to meet them when they came out. So that was about the only time I ever heard of them being thrown in jail down there, except after when the Tulalip started going crazy. And by then I'd left Nisqually and headed for Alaska. My stepdad still had his license, and I went up there for a year and came back. And then my little brother drowned up there, and so they needed help on the boat to go back up there. And so I went back up again and fished for a year, and it really tore the family up to lose the boy. He was only like 4 years old and he drowned. But the father, he was like 75, Art McKay, and it about broke his heart. But eventually he ended up fishing by himself, and we got a message from the Coast Guard that they found his boat up on the rocks and that he'd been drowned. But we think that he just kind of gave up because he lost everything that he wanted. But we had to go back up there and square away his boat and stuff, so I ended up going back up there again, and eventually ended up there about 5 different times. But I don't know, so many bad things happen up there, you don't want to go back to a place like that. They both drowned within less than 10 miles of each other. And
just talk about when you first started meeting Mom.
well, when I met her, she was about that tall. Yeah, no, her mom and my mom and Joanne, they were all best of friends when they were young, and they all ran together, and they all had kids together, and I mean they all have a kid about the same age. Me and Sonny and Carol and Gail, or Stevie and Gail. Yeah, no, I knew her all my life, and between getting chased off to Fort Sill and getting back from the military, I got back, started fishing again, and met up with Carol again, and then we got married, and here we are. But it's been a pretty good life.
You spent a lot of years as part of the Honor Guard. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, when I first got home, I kind of didn't want nothing to do with any more of the side of guys wounded, and because I saw some pretty terrible things. But I was sitting up in my office, the old Friendly Tavern, and Ray Moses come in, and he bought me a beer, and we were sitting there talking, and he said he had a problem. I said, why? He says, they were burying a guy, and nobody showed up. There's no honor guard, and no family. So I said, will you come and help? So away we went. Picked up 7 guys at the bar, and we headed. It was like me and Art Contrero, Steve Jones, George and Gubber Reeves, Larry Charlie, Ray Moses, and Danny and Neil. And after that, I said, if you ever need help again like this, just come and give me a call. After that, he didn't bother going looking anymore. He just say, well, we got another one. But I've been on the honor guard ever since. I've only missed a couple, but it's been an honor. I know all them guys that I started it with, they're gone now. And I know Gene Zackies and David Freiberg and Art Contreras, they were all in charge of running it, and they did a good job with what they had. But getting sadder that they all have to leave. There's no more World War II veterans, I don't think, for our tribe. It's going to be the same way for the Vietnam guys pretty quick.
You hunted a lot of elk and deer in your life. Can you tell us about some of the other things that you hunted?
Oh. Never really went after anything when we were just hunting for deer for food in the beginning. Cause, I don't know, things were pretty tight, so if you got a deer out here, you're on somebody's good list, you pass it around or share it with everybody, because when I was young, food was hard to come by, and you didn't have pop and candy and whatever, all that. That's a luxury we never saw. And even money, I think I was about 15 before I saw my first $20 bill that I could put in my pocket. I mean, otherwise it was just penny nickels. And
I was remembering like when you caught a bear, and then there was some mountain goat, and
yeah, we tried to hunt bear, but we didn't want to at first, and then we found out that one bear will eat about 30 elk in 1 year by himself. So we figured, well, any one we knock down is going to save a lot of elk. So not only that, you have an elk or a bear hide, but I've got a couple of bear hides, and it's nice to get them, but don't like the taste of bear meat. I mean, it's too greasy, but some guys swear by it. Not me. I'd rather eat the elk. But yeah, we had all the way from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the valley. I stood face to face with Mount Rainier. I got pictures where it's right there, and I mean, I've been up so close there that people could never get into where we've been. We've been at it for so long.
Can you talk a little bit about the mountain goat?
When Stan and Bernie, or I don't know who started it, but they were the first two to get the elders. Well, they give them elk tags to two of the elders because they were the first ones, and we took Stan down there to go hunting, and somebody shot a goat, and they were talking that it's kind of ceremonial or a sacred animal or something. We didn't want to shoot it because I don't want a goat, and everybody wanted one because they were supposed to be sacred. And then we went down there and we shot a couple of them and come back and showed them, like, here, there ain't that much to it. And everybody was impressed. And I said, you could drive right down to the mountain there and see them. They're all over this mountain. You could just see the white goats, but we had to climb up. I mean, my son, he shot the first one and was climbing up, and it was so steep, he couldn't climb back down. He had to go up to the top and find another way out of there. But then we found the trail, and now we know how to get the mountain goats. But then after we shot one or two of them, they changed the regulations that they don't want us to shoot them anymore. And I said, well, whoever wants one, we can show them where they're at, but nobody really wants one except for the horns, and it's kind of a waste to be killing that. They're pretty when they're out there, but like a bear, they don't taste very good.
One other story I was thinking would be kind of interesting for the kids to know that you used to ride a motorcycle.
We didn't have too many toys when we were younger, and I finally got my first motorcycle, and me and Keith were out riding in the woods, and we were going too fast, and said I hit that tree, and I thought we were just gonna stop. That bike just went straight up that tree like that, and here me and I was going up the tree like that, and Keith was hanging on behind me, and then the bike and him and me all went over that way. And said I landed right on top of him, and holy smokes! And we quit riding bikes after that. But another one I wanted to say was when Hipper, I call him Hipper Balls, but we go out, he'd come out fishing with me on the boat, and he couldn't bend his legs or nothing, so my cabin, he'd get in there and he'd be walking around like that, and I took him out there by the bar, and it was kind of rough, and I was picking up, and the door, you can slide it open and see what's going on, and close it, and I told him, don't open that door, and he said, because I went out there and I was starting to pick the net up real fast, and said he's going to tell me how deep it was. I said, I know how deep it is. I can see the bottom. And he opened the door and a big wave hit. And his hippers down there, just and that door's shut. And I hear he's paralyzed and crippled. And he couldn't do nothing. He couldn't jump out of the way. But then we got back to the dock, and he had laughed it off for a while and drank. And I took him out another time when we were over by Sheldy's. It's an old dock where everybody used to have to walk down these steps to get to the only dock. And me and him was going up the steps, so I had to pack him. And I had him over my shoulder like a pack of spuds and going up the ladder. And here we started going over backwards, and I grabbed a hold of the handrail. The handrail ripped off, and over we went backwards, and we both fell down, probably about from here 10 feet to the ground. And I landed right on his chest. I thought I killed him. He said, are you all right? Are you all right? Me, he said, are you? I thought I could hear bones crush when I hit him. But we got back up again, and up and away we went, man. But nobody would take him fishing or anything. And come on, let's go. And he said, you want to go hunting? Come on, let's go. And he took him places where he couldn't go, or they told him he couldn't. So he was a pretty good friend of mine. But the disease finally caught up to him. I didn't ever really know what it was. I thought it was polio, but Art and them said it was something else. But got him as a little kid. But he was a good friend.
I want to make sure to ask if you have advice for like your future great-grandkids.
My advice to them now is if you think about doing something, you better get out and do it, because time goes by so fast. When I was younger like they are, when I first hit 21, the days were so long, and then I turned 21, and then they started going faster, and get up to 40, and it's even faster, and now it's almost 75 years, and the days just seem like hours now. So if you got to do something, you better do it and not hold back. And be the best at what you can do. Don't risk your life, but do the best.
The Tulalip History Project appreciates Joe's contributions in serving our country, our tribe, and for sharing his life stories in support of preserving Tulalip culture.